Andy Dalton restarts his career in Chicago after a one-year stop in Dallas following his release by the Bengals a year ago. Here is Dalton from his introductory press conference with the team in a city that, for the most part, doesn't want him.
You know, you're talking as if you're the starter. What kind of assurances have you been given by the Bears that they're done at quarterback, that they're not going to be making any other moves to bring in more competition for you?
They told me I was a starter. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to come here. And so every conversation I've had has been that. So that's the assurance that I've got.
Oh, Andy, you silly, silly boy. Look, how many times, Charean, have we seen a quarterback get signed in free agency and he's the starter? They hold up the jersey, they have the press conference, and then here comes the draft. And what happens? What happens? Quarterback drafted in round one.
He's not.
Oh, and you're still the starter. You're still the starter until you're not.
Until you get benched. Yep. You look at Ryan Fitzpatrick last year, right? He finally got benched for Tua, and it happened to Tyrod Taylor when he had the injury sooner than it was supposed to happen, and Justin Herbert Wally pipped him. And that was done for Tyrod Taylor, and now he's moved on. So, yeah, absolutely, Mike. He's going to go in there as the presumed starter, but that doesn't mean he's going to start, especially with Nick Foles behind him. And we know Nick Foles' history as a backup quarterback. He does really well when he comes in for somebody else. But it's curious to me, Mike, that the Bears, if Ryan Pace and this organization, if they move on from these guys, coach and GM after this year, it's all going to go back to the quarterback errors that they've made. And you start, obviously, with taking Trubisky second overall. But they could have had Andy Dalton last year in free agency, and they didn't do it. And they went with Trubisky again, and they traded for Nick Foles and got him in as the backup, and then went ping pong back and forth with those two guys at quarterback. But I'm not sure, based on what they did last year, when you look at the weapons that Andy Dalton had in Dallas, and then you look at the weapons that Mitchell Trubisky had in Chicago, I'm not so sure that Mitchell Trubisky didn't have a better year than Andy Dalton did last year. His passer rating was much better than Andy Dalton's was, and Andy Dalton had a ton of weapons in Dallas. So I'm not sure this is an upgrade for the Bears. So I understand how Bears fans are feeling right now.
Well, and look, we're going to talk about Trubisky in a second, but Trubisky went to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years. And there's value in that. But the problem is in 2018, when Matt Nagy became the head coach, he refused to alter his system. Well, it was more 2019 when it hit the fan. 2018, he made it work like training wheels with Trubisky, and it was good enough because the defense was really good because Vic Fangio was there. 2019 is when it all started to fall apart because that was when the square peg round hole thing really happened between Trubisky and Nagy. And now this year what we saw was Nagy adjusting the offense to suit Trubisky, and it began to work. But Dalton, 5 straight playoff appearances to start his career with the Bengals. I think that Trubisky isn't as bad as the Bears fans thought, but Dalton won't be as bad as the Bears fans feel. At least the expectations are low. That's a good thing. If you're the Bears, look, you've been to the playoffs 2 times in the last 3 years. You've managed to keep the expectations low going into 2021. That's good, because if you go 9-7 or 10-6, the fans are going to be pleasantly surprised.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.